Thank you for watching this Last Mile Profits video.
What could the Straits of Hormuz have to do with parcels? Watch on to find out more.
Last Mile Profits is brought to you by Parcel Pending by Quadient.
Gary, if I say Straits of Hormuz, what do you say?
Well, I think it was a psychedelic rock band of the 1960s, wasn't it? And looking at your shiny shirt, I'm thinking you've been digging through the old vinyl and you've come up with some obscurity you're hoping to flog on vintage.
Well, I actually thought you'd like it.
I do like it.
Hang on, is it me? My God. Okay. Well, we'll pretend it's not there. At least it will attract everyone's attention. It's real. It's me. It's not AI. But no, that is not the answer, Gary. I'm thinking about this little adventure that the US and Israel have had and the effects, primarily no-fly zones and above all, fuel and gas prices. Bit of a big deal, wouldn't you say?
It's a huge deal, isn't it? I mean, I got Private Eye the other day and it said President Trump is in dire straits. And I thought, oh my God, he's going to be doing drumming for Mark Knopfler now. But that's not what they meant. They meant the Straits of Hormuz. And it is properly serious. And it's going to have an impact on, well, in time, i.e. now, what are we now? Monday, the 27th of April, all might be over by the time this goes out on Thursday. But as we sit here now, it's potentially going to have an impact on every single bit of the supply chain.
Well, let's look. I mean, I would say, Gary, probably from my perspective, the single most important thing, unless you happen to be in Dubai or that neck of the woods, is the fuel price, because it dramatically changes the costs of operation. And although people have fuel surcharges, this is a big issue. And, my feeling, let's think, what can you do? Because first of all, I think there's two things. What can you do tactically? But secondly, what can you do to avoid being hit by things like that? So maybe I'll kick off because it's a subject close to both of our hearts. One of the obvious things is have an out-of-home network, which means you have less mileage, use less fuel, and it's going to be more efficient. But maybe you've got some ideas as well.
Well, I mean, you kind of glossed over the fuel surcharge part, but with my experience of having worked for a couple of carriers, they kind of do all right when the fuel price goes up, particularly when it's an upstream bit of the fuel cost, like jet fuel or shipping costs and so on. So they do have fairly well covered mitigation in a lot of the contracts for fuel surcharging. And sometimes it's actually tips into the carrier's favor to have that. Now, longer term, the customer's going to start to mitigate that and do some of the things you're describing. But the carriers are probably one of the better placed people in the supply chain. Now, posts, on the other hand, who have to publish their pricing a sort of year in advance and don't have the opportunity to go and whack a couple of pence on a stamp or the cost of a parcel, have got different issues, I guess.
Well, I think you're right. And in fact, I did a couple of years ago now, I looked at a carrier whose name I won't mention. I actually worked out that the fuel surcharge was their profit. So if they had no fuel surcharge, they wouldn't be making money.
Well,
so
we had a big old chat last time about the UPS surcharging for all kinds of stuff. I mean, if you took all the surcharges out of the US carrier business, I think it'd be like a skeletal remains of it left. I think it kind of lives on it. But more importantly, where does it go longer term? Because this is going to be flowing through to the cost of goods. It's going to hit inflation. It's got huge impact for every economy.
Yeah, and I think that the one issue I would share, because I think you're right, posts are in a difficult spot, but actually e-commerce players quite often actually restrict surcharges. So some of the really big players will have a contract where even if a carrier has surcharges elsewhere, there'll either be no surcharge or a capped surcharge or a limited surcharge. So, it's not all plain sailing. The other thing is, quite often I've seen that carriers, even the ones that take surcharges, don't pass that all on to the drivers. So, at the end of the day, then you've got the issue, how far can you go before the drivers start having issues?
Well, particularly if you're paying pence per mile or pence per parcel, there's an underlying fuel element sat within that, but it doesn't take a lot actually for the pence per mile start to cost you more in fuel than you're actually getting back in the first place, let alone wear and tear and servicing costs and everything else on whatever vehicle you're operating. But you could start running into a loss.
Absolutely. So let's look, because I think if we agree that, yes, this can be potentially an issue, particularly in some quarters, what else can you do? So we've talked about out-of-home's the obvious one, but what about electrification? Because we can see technology moving forward very, very fast. And, I have as everyone knows, I think now, my Chinese electric car, which I'm actually really happy with. And a couple of months ago, when I got it, it was the bee's knees. It was the latest thing. And I'm still very happy. But I can see every iteration. And it's not like with traditional cars, you wait for a year and you get some small facelift. You've got dramatic improvements coming literally every year with these models. Isn't electric now getting to the point where it can become a meaningful and viable alternative?
Well, I think you're forgetting the fact that most electricity is generated by gas, and the wholesale gas price has been, if anything, more heavily impacted than jet fuel. So ultimately, the cost of a kilowatt hour is going to go up possibly more quickly than the cost of a tank of diesel. So I don't think you're immune from those costs by going electric.
I agree in some markets, but so France, for example, has a lot of nuclear power.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Spain, where I think they had a problem because they have too many solar panels, which, by the way, I think China's also trying to use solar and wind energy. So perhaps if you added to the electric vehicles, and that's a good point, there are actually three elements to that working. One is you need electric vehicles that are viable because of the range and other elements. You need power to be gained from sources that are, should we say, not the classic Polish thing where historically a lot of our electricity was created with coal-fired power stations. So, when people talk about...
you weren't content with making your own coal. You decided to make enough to destroy the British coal industry as well, which, anybody that lived in South Wales in the 1980s will thank you for. So thanks for that.
Well, the good news, Gary, I'm not a coal fan. So let's move on to the more serious stuff. So the second one is the sources of power. And the third one is actually having a grid and nodes at which you can charge the vehicles. So I don't think this is a quick fix, but my feeling is things like this, shocks like this, perhaps are the writing on the wall that we need to change something.
My take on it is the excuses for not electrifying are being eroded. The buts, I would go electric, but I would do it, but I would do it, but all of this stuff is going away. And it just takes a tipping point. And I actually agree with you to a certain extent. This could be the tipping point where people say, you know what, we're too dependent on fuel. We're too dependent on gas or petrol, diesel prices. We need to adopt this new technology. And now is the time to do it. In the past, I think, you've had range anxiety, you've had infrastructure anxiety. But now I think it's different. What is hideous, actually, is the cost of charging your car up out of home. If you're lucky enough to be able to charge it up at home, you're doing okay. But this infrastructure that people are developing, people are getting a little bit impatient for payback and charging a lot of money to charge up electric vehicles on the road.
And I think that's part of it. There probably needs to be some kind of regulation that avoids people going over the top. But Gary, I have to stress this, everyone. I don't know if you heard this. Gary agrees with me, just to make it clear.
There has to be a time every now and again. So I'll let you have that one.
Gary, have we missed anything? I think we covered the key things.
I think we have. I think the next few, I've stopped measuring time in months now, and even a week or a fortnight seems too long to stop and check and see what state the world is in. But in this period of rapid change, you've got to have your wits about you to continue to make money in parcels if you ever could.
And you have to have things that basically buffer you against those changes, because the one thing is clear, the world has become a lot less predictable than it was.
Well, it definitely has.
Gary, as usual, a pleasure. Looking forward to the next one.
See you soon.
Gary, I was looking at the subscriptions and realized that a huge number of our audience actually don't subscribe to watch our videos.
Really? That's outrageous. It's a bit like watching the BBC without your TV license. How can we keep it free if people aren't subscribing and letting us know they want more of this content? It's ridiculous.
And on top of that, if they're not subscribed, they don't get information about the latest hot episode where you can make one of your witty jokes and we can talk about something that is really important for our industry.
If I knew that a single act like that would make sure I got maximum time taking the mickey out of you, I'd be hitting subscribe in a heartbeat.
Well, look, so here we have it. Please, everyone, if you haven't subscribed yet, this is your opportunity. Click right now. The button should be there, or maybe there. Do it now and have it done.